Approaching the streets of San Francisco through the conceptual frame of the thrill killers transforms the series from a conventional police drama into a study of motivation, not simply why crimes occur, but why certain crimes linger in the mind while others fade into procedural anonymity. One of the most striking elements of the 1972 series is how it treats crime not as a puzzle to be solved for intellectual satisfaction, but as a rupture in social continuity that leaves behind emotional residue rather than narrative clarity. Scene by scene, the show privileges observation over exposition, allowing characters to exist in states of partial understanding, which mirrors the lived reality of policing far more accurately than the tidy resolutions common in genre television. Inspector Stone's interactions often feel less like interrogations and more like negotiations of meaning, as if he understands that facts alone are insufficient to address harm. This approach becomes especially potent in scenes where suspects are not overtly violent, but emotionally distant, evasive, or disturbingly calm, embodying the idea that thrill can manifest as emotional detachment rather than aggression. The series repeatedly returns to moments where nothing happens in conventional sense: a prolonged silence, a hesitant answer, a look that lingers too long, and these moments generate more tension than any chase sequence. In doing so, the show subtly critiques the audience's expectation for excitement, asking whether the desire for thrill is itself part of the problem. Compared to contemporary crime dramas that emphasize speed and shock, The Streets of San Francisco feels almost meditative, its pacing encouraging reflection rather than adrenaline. This quality is particularly evident in how violence is contextualized, rarely isolated from its social consequences, often followed by scenes that dwell on grief, confusion, or bureaucratic aftermath. From a comparative standpoint, the series stands apart from other shows of its era by refusing to frame law enforcement as heroic saviors, instead presenting them as flawed participants within a complex system, bound by rules that both protect and limit them. Stone's authority is quiet, rarely asserted through force, and this restraint reinforces the series' skepticism toward dominance as a solution. Watching the show today, one cannot help but draw parallels to modern discussions about crime, media, and attention, particularly the way notoriety can function as a secondary reward for violence. The Thrill Killers, as a conceptual title, captures this dynamic perfectly, suggesting that thrill is not inherent in violence, but constructed through response, repetition, and narrative emphasis. On a personal level, the series evokes memories of encountering crime stories in a pre-digital era, when information traveled more slowly and mystery was not immediately resolved through online speculation. This slower pace allowed for ambiguity to exist without anxiety, something modern audiences often struggle with. The Streets of San Francisco embraces ambiguity, allowing questions to remain unanswered, motivations to remain opaque, and outcomes to feel provisional rather than final. This openness challenges the viewer to sit with discomfort, to accept that understanding is often incomplete. The city's visual texture, its hills, fog, and dense neighborhoods, reinforces this sense of partial visibility, as if clarity itself is always just out of reach. Ultimately, The Thrill Killers is less about criminals seeking excitement and more about a society negotiating its relationship with danger, curiosity, and restraint. The series' greatest achievement lies in its refusal to exploit violence for entertainment, choosing instead to explore the quiet psychological spaces where harm begins and where responsibility must be continuously re-examined.